Hello, this is Bastien, and today I am interviewing Lynn Oakwood because she released her first book called Alassian Born, which is a fantasy book. It was released the 1st of July on physical, Kobo, and Kindle. So I will start to attack her with my questions, and she will answer the way she wants, of course, because we have quite some amount of time, so she can be quick or long if she wants. Would you like to add something more to present yourself?
Hello, nice to meet you all. Well, just I wrote this first novel, an epic fantasy, and I'm really excited about it. So I'm ready.
On my part, I am already at half of the book, so I already have quite some experience about this book, but still not enough to have a final judgment. But yet, there are still many, many interesting things that we will talk a bit later. But first, I will ask in order to be meaningful. So, how did this idea of creating this story first started?
Oh, wow. Okay, that's an interesting question already. Well, I think I always had many ideas because I first started writing books. Well, I tried writing books when I was I think in my teenage years. At first, I wanted to write mangas. Then I wanted to write books. And I had a friend at the time with whom I pitched some ideas. Well, we didn't know we were pitching, but we both wanted to write, and we both were creating worlds and writing some first chapters and talking about that. So I always had many ideas. And I think that Alassian Born is a combination of parts, small parts of many, many ideas that came to me during the years. So I think that's the main the majority of it. The exact ideas that created Alassian Born, like in more specific, it was a specific idea where I wanted to merge fantasy and sci-fi in a way that, at least to me, was new. And my idea was to have, in my head, I had this image of elves, like your traditional elves with pointy ears, and like human soldiers from the modern era, with guns and maybe some androids and things like that. Now, a little of this is an Alassian Born. Um, Not really. Most of it is not. There's no androids, but yeah, that was the idea. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So it's cool because you anticipate exactly my next question. You already started to answer. You said there was sci-fi, classic fantasy. What other keywords would you use to describe a bit more for people that don't know anything at all about Alassian Born, but at the same time without spoiling? For example, politics, relationship, love, whatever.
I think for me, Alassian Born is two things mainly, two aspects. It's the fantasy and adventure, and um, so what describes the book in that regard? Magic, heroes, heroic combat. And on the other hand, is relationships. Um, I think it's moving, and um, there's definitely a lot of empathy there, and a lot of heart. So yeah.
Okay. When you say moving, because I'm French, my English is quite average. So when you say moving, it's not the fact of moving something to somewhere else, but it's more touching, right?
Yes, touching. Yes, that's a better word for it. Yes, at least it is for me. Then I hope it also is for the people who read it. So it's definitely touching for me.
Definitely the same, yes. We definitely can see the progress into the relationships, and That's very nice because strangely it's not common. Many stories, the characters are the same from the beginning to the end. So it's very nice already from the first book that you can do that. Okay, so where is the
Thank
next
you.
one? Um, so you had the original idea, and from the moment you started to the moment you finished, do you think the main idea, the main substance changed?
You mean when I started writing it to when I finished? Yes. So when I started writing it, I was very focused on the world building setting, which is the first part that I told you about. So the fantasy aspect, the adventure, and all that. The heart kind of came after as I was writing. I'm not a big plotter. I obviously have some plot points when I start writing a book, but a lot of the book is created as I write. I'm the kind of person that let the words drive me. So as I wrote originally, I actually had, when I started writing Alassian Born, I wanted to make it a trilogy. The title was something else. I started writing and I wrote like 80,000 words, like quite a bit of it. I was basically towards the end of what would have been the first book of a trilogy. And I liked it, but I decided that it wasn't enough what I'd written. It was nice, but it wasn't anything special. And so I restarted from the beginning. I kept some of the things that were in there, mostly the world building. A lot of it was already there, but I didn't like. It was not. I didn't connect with it the way I wanted to. So I took a break. I took some time, and I was about to leave it behind and try to just write something else, a completely different story. But I couldn't let go of some of the characters. And so after I think a couple of weeks of just thinking about it, or just taking walks and thinking about what to do instead, I just came up with a new idea, which was the final form of Alassian Born, and it's what it is now. That focuses, I would say, more on just the characters. Yeah, I would say. So it has a lot more substance, in my opinion, in terms of the characters feel more real and everything. So it changed a lot from the beginning to the end, definitely, because there was a moment halfway through where I liked a lot of the basics, but then I completely changed the heart of it in a way, because the characters became a lot more complicated and a lot more interesting and a lot more real for me when I just let go of everything I'd already written and restarted from the beginning. And so, yeah.
That must be very a harsh moment, or whatever is the outcome, good or bad for you, to at the very end to restart again from almost scratch, I suppose, since you came up with a lot of new elements.
Well, I knew that I'm a new author. This was new to me because this is the first book I ever wrote. And I learned as I went, and for that I wrote the beginning of it in the first draft was it took me, I think, about 3 months to write. That's when I decided, okay, this is not good enough. So that was 3 months of hard work, but learning and experience. And I always try to keep my eyes open. Writing is what I want to do in my life, and I want to be good at it. So I tried to look at it objectively. So objectively, I couldn't say this is good. This should go out there and people will love it. So I wanted to be realistic, and so that's what I saw. I saw that this is okay, but this is not enough. So yeah, and it was a good choice, I think.
I think it really shows a true heart for meaning when you write to do such thing, because you could be very close to publishing it in the state it was, yet you decided not to. So I think it will be very touching for the people that listen to you right now. About that, about the writing phase, you speak few languages. Did you write in your native language, which is not English?
I did when I was a teenager and in my early adulthood. For not for that long, but I wanted to write and to write a book since I was a teenager. And at some point, I sat down and started doing that, but I had pressure from family and kind of life needs to move on, sort of thing. And so I gave myself 6 months to write, to just dive into writing and see how that felt to me and if it would go somewhere, if I could actually do it as something that's just part of my life, and I do. And at that time, I did write in Italian, but this was many years ago. And my Italian was horrible, disgusting. So I wrote a short story at the time, which was quite long, but it was a short story. Let's call it a short story. And if I read some of it now, I can't. Like, I can't read it. It's too bad. I think, though, I think the content was good, but the writing was terrible. English is the language that I truly love, so it's what I like. Yeah.
So what we are reading, which is in English, it's actually your own word and it's not a translation, right?
No, it's not a translation. No.
Your English is very higher than mine, then because I often have to use Google Translate to find a word.
Yeah, well, words are tricky. I forget words as well, so I often use dictionaries to find the right words, usually in during revision or mostly during editing, because I know there is a word that I know I need that word, but I forgot what that word is. So I do need to use the dictionary to help myself finding the right words at times. I also, I also like to be precise in my writing. So I want to make sure that the words I'm using are the right ones. So I use the dictionary a lot to check the definitions of words.
I wonder how much stuff you have all around you when you write. Don't tell me.
It's mostly computers, so it's okay.
It's cool with the technology we can have so much help very quickly compared to the authors from 1 century or two ago.
Yes. I actually think that's an important thing. I think that if I was born 50 years ago, I don't think that at this point in my life I would have been able to write a book in English, because without the internet, honestly, I think it would have been so much more difficult, and it would have been much more of an insurmountable task to, in terms of just finding the right words. Just internet is so helpful. Like, it's, yeah, it's so much easier than going through a dictionary and looking for the right word. It's just much quicker. So
Yes, completely. If we compare our life conditions, not life condition, but knowledge availability in the daily life right now compared to before, we are like half gods.
yes, that's true. That's true.
It's very strange, but we are still lucky. Um, okay, so it's cool because the fact that what you wrote is not a translation, in fact, it spare you with the bad translation or the translation that can literally change the meaning of what you want to say. And it's what we saw in some classes of literature. We saw that the book from George Orwell, 1984, was between two translations. It had totally different meanings, so it's quite shocking. So it's cool.
Yes, no, I know exactly what you mean. I've had experience where I picked up a book and I thought, wow, this book is awesome. And then I read a different translation and I was not excited about it at all. I think that was Memories from the Underground, I think. But yeah, so, and often people ask me, oh, is your book going to be translated in Dutch or is your book going to be translated in Italian? And I don't know how to tell them. I don't have the heart to tell them. But yes, you can wait for it. Maybe one day it will be translated. But you know, it won't be. I feel like it won't be my book anymore. Because it's because I love English so much and I understand English so well that I know how the meaning of words can change radically when it's translated. It can be it can even improve sometime because you know it's all up to the translator, but it's just not usually not just the same as it was originally.
Yes, I totally understand. It's like you making a photocopy of your child, I suppose. Okay, I am always curious about the authors. Uh, I think they have a map that shows them where they want to go sometimes, but they also have an engine that keeps them being able to drive every single day, or maybe not each day, but something like that, that allows them to keep writing over and over until the task is done. Um, I don't know if it's called motivation or principle or whatever, but what would you say kept you uh, engaged into writing? I don't know, every day if you wrote every day.
So for me, it's different. There are two stages in the writing. There are many stages, but mainly I would say there are two things you're going to do when you write a book. First, you write a book. So you don't have the end. You start writing, you're at the beginning. You need to write the whole thing to the end. That's the one thing. Until you get to the end, you don't know if you have a book or not. To have a book, you need to finish writing it. So as long as you are writing the first draft, you don't know if that book in the end is going to exist because anything can happen before the end. You might think you have the perfect ending. You write the whole book, you get there, and you can't write the ending for some reason. Just it doesn't work out, or you realize you missed something, or anything can happen. The second thing you're going to do is revision and editing. And that is, for me, that was a huge amount of work. That was a lot more work than writing the book was. So it took me 3 months to write the book. It took me about 3 more months to do a good amount of revision so that everything in the book was consistent from beginning to end, and it was all correct in terms of what's written in the book, not in terms of grammar and such, but in terms of the story, the characters, and everything, the plot. So that was about 6 months. And then it took me probably about 2 years to do revision and editing. It was a lot of work for me because also this is my first book and I basically learned how to write while writing and editing. And for me, I had also two different kind of things, two different things kept me focused depending on what activity. So if I am writing, so during the actual writing on the book, my focus was to write a book that I could publish and that people could read. So my focus was, I have this story. I know it's going to be awesome and I'm going to love it. But for me to read it, for it to be awesome and for me to love it, I need to write the whole thing. So that was the focus for me while I wrote the book. And I think I don't know if it's the same for many people, but I know that it will be the same for me for every single book. I will have an idea that I love, that I think it's awesome, and I need to see it done to the end. I need to see it becoming a book, becoming a full story from beginning to end. So that's it. For the second part, the editing is just a lot of work, and it's knowing that you have written something that is awesome, And now you need the time to just make it even better, so that when people read it, they will be amazed too. Because if you don't do the work on the editing, even if your book is amazing, there will be so many distractions for people. There will be things wrong in there in terms of grammar. It will be distracting, and a lot more people will drop the book and stop reading it because it's not polished enough, and so it's not that much of a pleasure to read. So for me, those were the motivations. Basically, I'm goal oriented.
I think it's cool. It's very cool to receive all the work and all the thinking and just read it, enjoy it while you did everything for us.
Well, that's the idea, you know. You are buying a product, or maybe also if you get it for free, it's still, you have their entertainment. That's what you have. You either bought or received or won entertainment. That's what a book is. So you should not be doing any job besides what job makes you happy, which is just reading it if it's pleasant for you to read. So, yeah.
Yes, totally. And do you think in the course of doing all those minuscule, expensive, and sometimes complex tasks that you just talk about, would you consider them obstacles, or if you had obstacles, what were your obstacles on the way?
Yeah. Well, during the actual writing of the book, the main obstacle is fear in terms of, will I get to the end of it? Am I capable of it? Is it too hard? Can I do it? That's the fear. Yeah. I would say that's the main obstacle. Also, there can be doubt, like doubting what you're doing. Is this good enough or not? I didn't particularly have that because I always thought there was something great in what I was doing, even though I knew there was a lot of work to do. But I thought the potential is there. I saw it. Except for the first draft that I threw away, because that's where I didn't see it, so that's why I threw it away. Anyway, for the editing, for me, the obstacle, the long months of editing, the main obstacle was boredom. Because even though it's necessary work and you do enjoy it at times, you certainly learn from it a lot from what you're doing. Still, after when you work on the same text for months after months after months, you're bound to get bored. And towards the end, the boredomness was excruciating. So that was the main obstacle. Yes.
I can't imagine for not living it, but yes, I totally understand when. I don't know if I can make a parallel about what you just tell me. Is that when I was working in a shop, the first few months were very fun because there was a lot of learning, a lot of new knowledge you acquire on the way. I suppose it's what you got as well when you started writing. But then, since you do every single time, I mean, after a while, you do every single day the same thing over and over, especially you in your editing phase where it's a lot of reviewing over and over the same pages. So it's probably the same feeling of absolute boredom that makes you want to just leave, and yet you didn't.
Yes, indeed. But like everything, yeah, but some work, it just needs to be done. There's not only the fun, so it's also.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's very wise to tell that because with movies and books, we have a quite idealistic perception of what is a writer, and behind the scenes there is a lot of cleaning, as you say. Yes. In the opposite way, since you started to write, it was a lot of new things for you to do. So it took a lot of place in your daily life, I suppose. So what would you say this new writer that you became changed into your daily life? Not
I
only,
think,
not only because it took you time, but also because maybe it changed you in some way also.
well, absolutely. Writing changed me very much. I can't even begin. There is just so many things that changed for me. First of all, like personally, as in, I sort of, it got me back in touch with what were my dreams when I was younger. Dreams that I put aside because all my life I've been told to be real, to just focus on the real life, you need to get a job, you need to be responsible, and etc., etc., etc. And it depends, of course, on your background, your family, and where you come from. But for many of us, we are told that just certain things are just dreams. You wouldn't think you're going to make a life, have a career as a singer or an actor or a writer or all these kind of awesome things. But the truth is that some people do. Very few people, but some people do. And even if you're not going to make a life out of something, it doesn't mean that it cannot be a huge part of your life, and you can still do it maybe as a hobby at first. Maybe, who knows, one day a hobby can become your actual job. So all these things, some of us are told to abandon these things and just leave them behind and just go and be a real adult. But when you leave behind things that you love and kind of pretend that you don't, or just decide that you need to put your time elsewhere and you just forget about all these things, it kind of cuts out a part of yourself and you change. You do, usually for the worst, I think, because it was a part of you and you lose it, and one day maybe you will remember that that part existed, and maybe you will find that, wow, all this stuff that was me, I forgot about it, but it was me, and I've sort of suppressed it all, and it was a wonderful part of me, and so that was a thing for me, and I discovered all of this again. And so I discovered that I used to dream about things when I was younger, and I discovered that as an adult, in one way or another, I can do those things and I can dedicate time to them. So that was wonderful. Yes, a new rediscovery.
Sorry, go on.
No.
I cut you. Okay. I think it's nice that whatever is the outcome, you at least try. So it's a very common sentence, but at least you don't have any regrets. And who knows if it's not at least something that you dreamed about related to the outcome, maybe it's at least a little pleasure in life. But for you, it seems it's more than a pleasure now.
um So I think that, we all have regrets, but regrets usually they should be for the younger people in a way. As in, I think when you are young, when you're a teenager, you can have regrets. Many of us do, right? When you grow up, you might still have regrets. But the thing is that when you are independent and you can make your own choices, then it's the moment to also start and think about the regrets, and thinking, like, whatever it is that you have a regret on, it might be you might feel like it's somebody else's fault, you might think like it's your fault, you might think like whatever, but in the end it doesn't matter, whose fault it was or what is the regret. What matters is that you can do something about it now, when you're an adult, when you're independent, when you have means. you can start, fresh in a way. You can pick it up piece by piece, and you can just start doing the things that you wish you'd done. If the regret is about not having done something, now you can do it, even though it's difficult. You need to think about money as an adult, you need to think about all sorts of things, but little by little, if you really want something, you can try your best at it and take it from there, and then try the things you always wanted to try. That's what I think.
Very interesting experience to have such a deep childhood goal and to finally just do it. That's all. And since you did go through a lot of physical and mental things on the way of your writing, when it finally was achieved, just simply, how did you feel?
Oh, so when the book was out into the world and released, well, I feel pretty good about it now, which is like 1 week later, so it's pretty fresh still. I guess it's. I think that in a way it's still not fully real for me, because I know some people have bought it. I know some people are reading it. Some people already read it, and that's awesome. But it's kind of like it's like everything, like when you go on holiday somewhere and you don't even realize you were there until you're coming back or something. Like it's just things in life, when something changes, it's a slow realization. um for me, releasing the book is only the beginning, because i want uh, I want to let as many people know that this book is there, and I want them to see if they like it, and if they like it, I want them to read it. So it's amazing for me to know that now I do have a book that people can read, and I have been writing it for some time. I've been working on it for quite some time, and for many months now, maybe even a year, more than a year, I've been telling people it's coming. It's coming. The book is coming. And I, for a long time, I didn't have anything to show for. They just had to take my word for it. And now the book is out there, so I can say, yes, this is my book.
No, you can start to feel
Really?
like a George R.R. Martin for Game of Thrones, except you have the good outcome of it. You can feel what he felt, I suppose. I missed a question. I'm sorry for that, so it will not seem logic in the course of the interview, but since it seems very interesting, for me at least, I am very curious. Since everything is on your own doing and on your own choosing when you write, how would you describe your setting of writing, your habits? For example, if you like to write at night alone in a corner, or whatever.
For me, again, it's two different. It's again, there are two answers to that. The actual writing of a first draft, for me, it can happen anywhere. So if I'm writing, I don't need to force myself to write. I like writing. So I guess I could just do it. I could do it anywhere. I could do it even if people are talking around me. A lot of key moments in the book were written on my phone when I was maybe on a bus or something. So if I have an idea, when I have an idea, I know I need to write it down, because otherwise I will forget. And the best ideas come not when I'm at the computer writing, but when I'm just whatever. Maybe I'm in bed and I'm about to fall asleep. So yeah, so the actual writing, I don't really need to have a routine for writing. But for editing, yes, I need to have a routine. I have a dedicated computer upstairs, and I just, on the days that I'm editing, so it's a day when I'm not working, and I instead spent my 8 hours just on the computer editing, like as if it was my job. So that's what I try to do. I'm still learning there, in terms that sometimes I still don't really want to sit down and do it, but I do have dedicated room and dedicated time for it, so that I'm trying to build a habit for that.
Yes, you are learning on the way, I suppose, since it's your first book. So you talked about a little notebook, and I suppose it's kind of a must-have for anyone that wants to write, to have a tiny book and a tiny pen, so wherever they are, whatever they do, they can write an idea and then not forget it, isn't it?
I think it depends on what kind of person you are, but I know that a lot of writers, even famous writers, they come up with idea, wherever they are. Maybe if they're driving or something, you come up with an idea and you develop that idea usually in your head. But in my case, I have a terrible memory. So as soon as I can, I need to write it down, because otherwise I will forget when I get home. So and when the ideas come for me, it's nice to explore them. If I have an idea for a scene or something, if I explore it in that moment, a lot of good things come out. Like mainly, for example, dialogues, they will come to mind, and there will be a conversation just coming out of nothing. If I just pick up a phone and start writing this scene, wherever I am. While if I don't do that, I have this idea, I try to keep it in mind. Maybe I take a couple of notes because I don't have time. Then later I try to write it, and it might be a kind of a stuttering, as in things struggle to come out. So when I have an idea in the moment, for me personally, it can flow very easily if I take the time to write it down at that moment.
And I suppose when you start to write, it tries a new idea after, etc., etc., like a web of ideas, I suppose. But
Yes.
it's just a thought of someone that did not write it.
No, that's also can be a thing, especially if you're plotting. So when you don't yet know. So usually when you write a book, in any case, you have some more general ideas of related to the plot, and then idea more related to a specific scene. So usually when you look at the book from a broader plot perspective, you have that thing you just mentioned, like a web, like spider web. You have an idea, and then from here, oh, I need to go there, I need to go there, I need to go there. Oh yes, and then I could do this. So it's good to also note all these things down, and it's a bit more complicated because you need to kind of know when you've written enough of your idea that you have enough to work on it later, and you can move on to the next before you lose the next, because it's gone. There is another one replacing it. So there is that too.
Okay, it's good to know, so people can steal your experience points. Nerd reference. um, so um, I have the question in my mind, but I have to keep reading it. I always forget it. Um, I'm sorry for that. So you can brief at least. Yes, so now that your book is out, so I suppose you may have a lot of good feedback, and in the mass of good feedback, I suppose there will be bad feedback as well. And so, how do you make sense of the good and the bad you can hear?
Well, first of all, I love feedback, especially if it's in the form of review. Keep it coming. um, so the thing is, when you write a book, some books are more can be loved by more. Some books are more they hit like a sort of a niche, you know. And I think that my book is more for a niche in the way that it's very. I wrote it for myself in a way. I wrote this book to publish it, but I wrote what I wanted to read. So I wrote a story that just got me really excited and just that, you know. And I know that people who are like me will also love this book, you know. But I also know that there will be a lot of people who will be disappointed because the book was not written for them. So if you expect a book full of, you know, like a world building and full of things that would bore me, you won't, because I wrote a book that would not bore me. I wrote a book that would get me excited. So there's bound to always be negative feedback regarding everything. But I know, yeah. And but I know that I did the best that I could, and I know that some people will certainly love this. So the negative feedback, I will always try to look at it objectively. I obviously hope that when the negative feedback comes, it will be constructive negative feedback and not just somebody enraged on the internet. Because that kind of feedback hurts, even though, you know, well, if they are enraged, it's, you know, it doesn't matter what they really say because that's not the problem there. But, you know, I will always try to. I've already received feedback from readers, but also from other writers with whom I shared some of the book. And of course, there has been negative feedback, some constructive and some just in terms of a specific person didn't like this because it's not that kind of thing. And I've learned from some of this feedback, and some other feedback I've just discarded it because I disagreed with it, mostly in terms of when I realized that the feedback was about what this person likes or doesn't like. It was not about, you know, are they giving me feedback that actually is based on meaningful experience of writing, you know, or publishing or something. So it's always a matter of when the feedback comes first, I try to, if it's, especially if it's negative, I try to analyze it and see who is it coming from and is it useful for me, this feedback, or not. If it isn't, then whatever, I'll try to forget about it. If it's useful, then, you know, I will look into it and see if I learn anything.
I think you said something related to that once when we talked earlier. You said that it was very meaningful. You said that feedback is quite related to statistics, is that even if you have a lot of success, for example, then the more success you have, the more haters you will have. So it really depends where you will put your look at and how you will focus on those critics.
I think so. Then if all your feedback is negative, then maybe look again. Maybe you should try to, you know, learn from it. That's
Unless 2 million people are wrong and you're right.
which could be, you never know.
That will be fun, yes. So I just have a few more questions, and they are quite light-hearted and
Okay.
maybe fun, maybe pathetic. It will depend of who will be watching. So you said earlier that you will keep in the direction of writing. I suppose still in the direction of fantasy and, as you said, maybe a second and a third tome, or it was just an hypothesis
Oh, sorry, what was the hypothesis at the end?
that you wanted to write a trilogy. Is it still the case?
No, 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 no. Trilogies are hard. Series are hard. So, um, I definitely, when I started writing, started, my idea was to write a trilogy because I sort of know that that is the trend out there for fantasy. So it was nothing I thought about. It was just, okay, I'm gonna write a trilogy. Then as I started, I realized how difficult actually it is to write a trilogy. It's much more difficult to write a trilogy than to write one book, because if you write a trilogy, you have two options. Either you write the whole thing as one book, then you split it into three and you just have all of that work done ahead of time. And that's a lot of work before you can publish anything. Or you write the first book, you have ideas or plot notes for the rest, and then you write the second, and then you write the third. But when you do this, you risk either locking yourself into things you must write and things you must not write, because you need to you need to be consistent with your first book. Or, and that's really hard, trust me, that's very, for me, that's very, very difficult, to not be able to do whatever I want when I'm writing, to not be able to write whatever I want, go whatever direction I want to go. For me, it's the hardest thing about writing. Yeah, so when I wrote then Alassian Born, which is just one, it's a standalone book, already when I was writing, when I was approaching the end, I saw the difficulty in having to meet certain settings and having to do certain things, because everything I wrote up until now needs to make sense with what I wrote. Well, what I write after needs to, take into account everything I wrote before in this story. Needs to be consistent and make sense, and that can be very, very difficult. And if you're writing a short novel, you can make fixes fairly simply. If you already published something, you can't fix it, then you have no choice. You need to make what you're writing now fit what you wrote before. So I don't think I will ever take up trilogies, maybe in a distant future, but I don't see that on the horizon, taking up trilogies in the way of writing a book that isn't finished, then write another one that continues from where the previous left off. What I plan to do with Alassian Born is, so I wrote this first book, which is a standalone. I do want to write a sequel, which will be a new story that starts off where the first ended, and it will just be a new story, and it will continue with some of the same characters, and it will continue in the same world, and that's what I want to do. But again, I have never done that before, so as I said, I don't promise that there will be a sequel yet. I want to write a sequel, but I don't promise it, because I don't know if I can do it, just as I didn't know if I could write a book, the first book in the first place. So there are many other projects I want to work on, and yeah, so it will be fun. I have really exciting hopes for the sequel of Alassian Born. I have some awesome ideas, like really awesome. So I will give it my best, but it's just another project. So
A good idea is already the best element,
yes.
I think, to be engaged. And I think your choice is very good to learn for people that want to start writing whatever, because what you decided to do instead of a trilogy allows you for much more creative freedom, and I think it's good to know that you can still do a lot about what you did previously, but in a different way, not necessarily to put yourself in a jail, as you said. So it's good to know.
It's true. At the same time, there have been authors that have published their first book and it became very popular, and they already wrote it as the beginning of a series or a trilogy or whatnot. And there are some huge, very famous people out there who did that. Also, most of them suffered a lot of like stress and difficulties because of it. Now, would I like that? Of course. I would love to write a first book that is the beginning of a series and it's amazing, and I have all this pressure to finish it because I promise that there will be more books, you know. But the thing is that would I be able to handle it? Maybe not. I think it's obviously safer to go with just the safer option and write something amazing that is just one book and then you take it from there. But of course, if you can be J.K. Rowling, go for it, you know?
Yes,
So-
I suppose this kind of strategy is much more complex and needs a lot more work and experience. It's not just more words, but it's also much more schematics, strategies, I suppose.
And tenacity.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So I will give my impression on the book. So as I said, I read quite a lot, but not everything. I am at 60%. Let me check. Yeah, 60.
Ebook readers are good for that. Wow, I can see it. Wow, 60%.
It's a nice art.
60%, so oh yeah, it is, right?
Mm.
I know, I think so too.
60%, I think I know more or less where you are.
Yes.
Who is still alive? So I try to come up with something meaningful to say, but at the same time, being meaningful could be risky because it could be also spoiling. So I will take back one of the things you said earlier in the interview. You said it was a mix of fantasy and science fiction. I didn't know you were gonna saying that, but in fact, I wanted to say that on the first look, it can look very classical. It can look very centered on the very classic, usual fantasy elements we are used to see in general. But I really like that you managed to make something absolutely new with very old popular elements. It really surprised me very much because it's a very different perspective on a usual genre, and it's very hitting and nice.
Thank you. That's awesome to hear. I'm glad you appreciated that.
Yeah.
But yes, I will not say more because it could be spoiling. Even without saying the plot, if we say a bit too much of the mood or the atmosphere, it can be too much for some people that will watch that and want to discover everything. So I will not say more.
Okay. And as you... No, sorry, if you want to say more, go for it.
Yes, I just want to say that for now, for me, it's extremely positive, yes. But I'm just a reader among everybody, so it doesn't matter what I think. So what did you want to say?
No, I just wanted to say that I am glad that you did like that. I am glad that you liked that aspect, because earlier you asked me what was the original idea. How did the idea for the book came to me, and I told you about this idea of basically a mix between fantasy and what is just not fantasy. And I know that there are a lot of books out there, maybe science fantasy books or just science fiction that is really fantasy, or fantasy that is there are fantasy with in worlds where there used to be an advanced human society on the planet, but now there isn't anymore. So it's just a fantasy, just a very traditional fantasy. Like I think it's Shannara, I think is like that, from Terry Brooks. There are other books like that. It's just a fantasy, and it is just a fantasy. But then they discover certain things that were from past advanced societies, you know? So there is stuff like that that merges fantasy and sci-fi in a way. But what I wanted was just something different. It was not something that I thought was not done before. At least I hadn't read it. Then if anybody reads my book, and if you know of a book that has done the same thing the way I did it, I would love to hear about it and to, you know, check it out myself. Because I thought that what I did was, I haven't seen it before. Then of course many people say that when they create their own things, but there is so much out there that we don't know. There is a lot of books and stories that, you know, maybe there is something exactly like that and I need to know about it.
Oh yes, it's like a good joke you think you created, and then you see a random quote from someone famous and he said exactly that, a bit different. And then you think, oops. So something totally unrelated, but since you are a writer and you have a particular soul, to make it simple and at the same time abstract, would you tell a music people would maybe enjoy to listen that they don't know about? Or something that you really like yourself, and it can be totally popular, something people know about, it doesn't matter, but something that you really love.
Oh, so this is not related to the book itself, right? It's not. It's just something that I like.
It can be, yeah. It can be, or it cannot be. Just whatever you want to say.
Well, I really like, in terms of books, I really like a writer called Ursula K. Le Guin.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think my accent did a mistake because.
Okay.
Yes. I was asking if there is a music that you would like to tell to people to listen at least once.
A song specifically.
Yes, a music, a song, or yes, something that you just enjoy.
Oh wow. Now that's a complicated question.
Oh really? I thought it was the most simple.
Yeah, because I didn't expect it, so I don't know. I mean, I can mention a song that was. I'm not sure if I should, because okay, I will. I can mention a song that was helped me keep in touch with the certain feelings that I wanted to be in the book, certain feelings I wanted to remain connected to when I wrote certain scenes in the book. So it helped me in a way keep on writing. But this can be a spoiler in a way, but it not really. It can reveal certain aspects in the book, maybe certain aspects that even somebody who's read the book didn't realize. So the song is Standing With You by Guy Sebastian. And it's just a song that I heard one day, and I think it was one day when I was already writing the book, and I thought, wow, the song is what I want to say. Not want to say, but what I want people to feel when they read certain chapters of my book. So.
Okay. And there is so many chapters that I think it will hardly be a spoiler, because so many things that are different are conveyed in each chapter that feel very unique. So I think it will not really spoil. I will have no idea how it will be, I think. So it's okay. If you want, I will make a spoiler alert, so they can skip it if they prefer.
No, I think it's okay, in the way that I'm always worried about spoilers, just because I think that this book, if you don't know, the less you know about it when you read it, the more you will enjoy it. That's what I think. Because, yeah. But I think you're right. It's not really a spoiler.
Okay, I will still put it just in case people are angry because they heard music. You never know. Okay, so the interview is almost over. I just have one last question to say, and Is there anything in the interview we did that I didn't cover or that I did said wrong about maybe that maybe you would like to add or change? Something you want to speak about your book?
I think it was good. We touched a lot of the subjects that I wouldn't have known I wanted to talk about in a way. So I think it was good. If I have anything to add, what kind of book is this? Good one. You have to read it.
Okay. Oh yes. So thank you very much for all your time, because you gave me a lot of time for that.
Thank you for wanting to interview me. This was the first time I've sat like this answering questions about my book. So it's the first interview. So it was really fun, and I loved the chance to talk about it. So thanks.
So it was a training for your writing of your book, a training for your interview, and a training for my own questions as well. We learned a lot today together, I think.
Yes, we did.
So I will remind everybody that I don't know, came late in this video, if they take it on the way later. And then I will remember who you are. You are Lynn Oakwood. You just wrote, and it was published the 1st of July, Alassian Born. It's a mix of fantasy and science fiction. It's available on Kobo and Kindle at €7.99, and on physical book at $17.99 as well. And I have some experience with book, but not huge, and yet I was extremely positively surprised. So you can check yourself. I think there is a first 3 chapter available on their website. Type Lynn Oakwood Alassian Born, and you may find a few sentences to read to make yourself an idea. Did I miss anything before we close?
Also, Amazon, the Kindle version has also a free sample, which is the first chapter and I think a little bit of the second chapter, if I'm not mistaken. So you can also read it on Amazon, the beginning of it, if you're on the ebook.
Okay, cool.
So you can read the sample on the store as well.
It's cool because some people want a very deeper idea before buying something, so it's nice that you say that. And I just remember something very important. Would you like just as the very last thing to show us the cover of your book? Because me, on Kobo, I don't have colors, but the cover of your book is very beautiful, and would you like to show it?
Yeah, I have it here. Let me stretch. This is the cover. And yeah, well, it's green. Well, it's more greenish when you see it live. The camera kind of changes the colors a little bit, but yes, there's 2 characters there and a lot of trees, lots of trees.
I like that the characters are very tiny compared to everything else. Is it a foreshadowing of the story? We don't know yet. You will see if you read. So thank you very much, Lynn, for all this time, and goodbye then.
Thank you. Thanks so much, and goodbye.